This is Dave Moran, Honeycomb Digital Investments. I'm here with Carol Goforth and Baxter Hines. There's been a recent development in the state of Wyoming in regards to business associations and how they may relate to crypto transactions and operating on a blockchain. Carol, can you tell us a little bit about what this recent development is and what the impacts are or could be?
Sure. I'm just to let people know why David would ask me this. Normally, in my other life, I teach business organizations to law students. And so one of the things I tell my students is that if you don't properly form a business organization and you just get together and you are engaged in business as co-owners, you run the risk that under the law, you will be treated as something called a general partnership. And the negative consequence for people who do that, who associate as co-owners hoping to make a profit, is that everyone has joint and several liability for any debts that the business might incur. And the concern that that raises for folks who get together and invest in crypto assets, particularly if they are mining and therefore have a say in validation of transactions, because that can be viewed as something like management, is that these are people who are essentially co-owners of a operation that intends to make a profit for those folks. They haven't incorporated, they haven't formed any other kind of limited liability business. Oops, are they a general partnership under the law? If somebody is engaged in nefarious conduct, is stealing assets, is manipulating things, is engaged in stuff that creates liability for them, does it also create liability for everybody else involved in that same project? That's the concern that Wyoming recently addressed in this past legislative session by enacting a provision that lets folks on the blockchain organize a limited liability company, what we in the business call an LLC, because the benefit of doing that is that if you organize as an LLC, you get limited liability. So instead of being general partners with unlimited personal liability, people who organize in a blockchain that is registered as a domestic LLC in Wyoming would, under the law of that state, be given protection against liability. And then the Constitution, full faith and credit, is likely to give that same kind of protection against liability, even if they're doing business elsewhere in the nation. And so this is the first state that has taken the step of authorizing a limited liability enterprise to form a business that operates through blockchain protocols. So you can have this crypto asset and you can still have confidence that you won't inadvertently be giving yourself potential personal liability. I think we're going to see other states do things similarly, although that hasn't happened yet.
Now, the immediate repercussions or implications, right? Is this Wyoming looking to attract business or banks that might utilize some of this underlying technology, some of the protocols, and giving them a way to organize or at least feel more comfortable with what they're doing? Or
I think probably the former. I think this is an effort to encourage businesses to organize in the state. You have to be under the statute domiciled. I know it's another big legal word, in the state of Wyoming, which means you have to file the papers there, you have to pay franchise taxes there, and you have to have an agent for service of process in Wyoming. And you are subjecting the blockchain itself to jurisdiction in that state. There are some issues, I think, that will have to be resolved, such as how do you guarantee that there will be somebody in this amorphous blockchain that is going to be willing to file the annual franchise tax forms and fees, maintain an agent. But if the group can work that out, I think this is a very forward-looking, project designed to head off a potential problem that could otherwise arise down the road. I haven't seen any litigation against nodes and individual crypto asset owners yet, but it wouldn't surprise me if an enterprising plaintiff's attorney doesn't try to do that. And I like that Wyoming is trying very much to make this a safe and welcoming space for folks who are interested in kind of even just dipping their toe into the crypto markets.
So, Carol, let me ask you this. I'm always a fan of anything that's going to create more certainty in the digital space, and this definitely sounds like a step in the right direction. My sort of intuition, though, on a secondary level is, are we going so far that now maybe these entities are considered securities and therefore the digital rights that are traded or the digital currencies, whatever that's there on that blockchain, would they be considered securities and therefore be subject to another regulatory body like the SEC? Or how does this all fit together?
That is a great question. Because certainly if we try to do it as a corporation and you got your crypto asset in the form of stock is always going to be a security. But if you are a participant in an LLC, so long as it is the members, the folks who buy in, that retain the management power, the general, investment contract test that we're all so much in love with in the crypto space is the same test that's going to tell us whether or not we have a security interest for an LLC. And generally, if you have member management, usually the perception is that means you don't have the expectation of profits based on the efforts of others because you're the manager, you've got the power. Mm-hmm. You're not just relying on somebody else. You're relying on the market, you're relying on the community, not any one promoter. So if you're going to be a security right now under Howie, you'd still be a security under the federal laws, even if it's an LLC. If you're not a security, turning it into an LLC really should not change that analysis. And Wyoming, of course, is also ahead and has been for some time in its securities laws, carving out an exemption from the state securities laws so that so long as a token that has functional utility is not marketed as an investment, is not marketed for speculation, it's already excluded from the state securities laws there.
Gotcha.
All right. Well, this is great. I learned something about one of the 50 states. We'll have to learn more about it. Thank you very much, Carol, for joining us today. Baxter, thank you. And we'll see folks next time.
My pleasure.
Thanks so much.